Having survived more overnight rain, day 18 was a short 40-kilometre walk in fairly wet conditions to the standing stones at Callanish. In fact, these were one of the reasons I undertook the entire Scottish tour. I've wanted to see these and some other ones for some time. Somewhat less ideal conditions at the moment, especially for cycling over what's essentially a mountain bog. It's blustery and raining lightly and it's I'd started out in the pretty early morning to try and avoid the west rain coming that afternoon. I set out around 8. Oh Jesus. So I'm hoping the traffic dies down shortly, because that's probably a rush hour of people getting to and from work. Morning. Morning. I think you can tell from my voice there that I was finding the going pretty tough, and at one stage I had to hide in a bush shelter from the rain, but I got there and I wasn't the only cyclist on the roads. One not insignificant advantage of the weather is that I've got a Callanish Stone circle to myself. Everybody else is in the visitor centre avoiding getting wet. It's quite impressive indeed. I've wanted to come here for years, but it's obviously hard to get to, in the sense that, you know, Harris is a long way out, so yep, this is cool. I'm actually staying just down the road, so I'll be able to pop up a few times. The weather quickly drove me to the visitor centre, where in fact I could get a hot breakfast, so that was welcome, and also which gives some of the context to the stones themselves. They're about 5,000 years old, and they were built in a sequence that's laid out in the centre, along with some drawings of what they think it looked like at the various points in that sequence. So I've included these here because I think they're quite useful. The actual complex itself, it's very big, is the thing that strikes you, and it can be seen from quite a distance away. It's on top of a ridge, and in a while I'll show you views from two of the other nearby stone circles, because as with elsewhere, it's not just a single circle, it's a complex of monuments that are about 5,000 years old, but which were used for a longer period of that and probably reused into the Bronze Age. Great location. The Callanish Farm Trust, which I've just seen from a sign, was gifted to the community by the University of Edinburgh in 2007. Run a couple of, I think 3 pods in total, a couple of 100 metres down from the visitor centre. That's where I stayed. Excellent location if you're thinking of coming here, because you can literally pop up and down to the stones in a couple of minutes, so you can wait out storms, get the right light conditions, etc. Do a sunset or a sunrise. And there's quite a view out to the bay as well. So Callanish was always pretty high on my list of places I wanted to get to, and as with everything else, question of accommodation is there. So I had spotted that there were some pods pretty much beside the site, but if you're cycling you can't really book things more than 24 hours in advance, because you never know what's going to actually happen. So I didn't book anything, but when the weather forecast for the terrible rain was there and I knew it'd be down, I booked it then, so I got it. So you can sort of see the top of the stones over that little hill in front of us. That's where Callanish itself is. That's the visitor centre, and there is where my pod is, looking out across the bay. So pretty cool. It was 50 quid a night, so it sleeps 2, so it'd be pretty cheap if you were 2 people rather than 1. My usual problem with solo travelling and accommodation, drives me mad. But anyway, I mean, it's still way cheaper than most other forms of with a roof accommodation. And it would have been pretty miserable to be outside. It's got 2 camper beds in it, microwave, kettle, a little heater actually as well, so I don't know if people come here in the winter, I guess they might. But yeah, I'm happy enough with it. It's not bad, and it certainly has a view. Booking the pod was a good move actually, because the rain turned out to be far heavier than what was actually forecast, so I spent quite a lot of time just stuck inside looking at it, and at least that way when it stopped, even for brief periods, I could then nip out again, and I even in fact managed to get a bit of drying in the evening when it eased off for a few hours. So the roof you can see down there is the roof of the pod I'm staying in tonight, and then if we swing around, that's Callanish Stone. I also visited the other stone circles in the vicinity. Just here, and there's another one there. Yep, that wind noise certainly brings back the atmosphere. Callanish is another one of those places where there's a complex of stone circles all quite close to each other. I'm in this third one at the moment. And let me see if you can see the ruined house there. There's a second one there with 5 surviving stones in it. And then the really big one is on the horizon there, in the dip between the two hills, and I'll be back there in a minute, but it's quite impressive. These segments are the evening when the rain died down to a light drizzle, and then thankfully at sunset more or less stopped altogether. So here in the middle circle we can look over and see the main circle of Callanish, but we can also turn around and there is the third circle over there. So it's interesting, they're all built quite close to each other, and finally the rain stops. Callanish, just has to be said, it's pretty damn impressive. Lots of rocks. And then the low light of sunset and the clouds gave some absolutely wonderful lighting. I have enhanced it here a bit, but you can certainly see the texture of the stones. So day 18 of my bikepacking Scotland trip ended at Callanish with a wonderful sunset. Thoroughly recommend visiting it. Outer Hebrides, bit out of the way, but sure, that's the point, they're wonderful.